You promised yourself this morning was the last time. You dumped the stash, blocked every contact, and felt that clean surge of hope. But by dusk, your hands are trembling, and the only voice you hear is the bottle, the app, the flame, the pill, pick your poison, whispering, just once more. Here's the truth. You are not weak, and you are not broken. You've fought like hell, and still, it feels like someone else is driving your body back to the very thing that's killing you. That's not failure, it's addiction. And addiction is not simply about willpower. It's about a rewired brain, a hijacked system, a pattern you never asked for. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the psychology of addiction, the hidden mechanisms that trap people in cycles they desperately want to escape. We'll explore the myths, the brain chemistry, the scars of trauma, and the role of environment. And more importantly, we'll reveal the shift in perspective that turns shame into understanding and hopelessness into a path forward. Stick around until the end, because the final insight might just change how you see addiction forever. We've all heard the slogans, just say no, as if addiction is as simple as picking between freedom and chains from some kind of vending machine. The world tells you the choice is obvious. Press the button for health, for clarity, for success. Yet when the same people who want freedom keep slipping back into the loop, shame barges in like an uninvited guest. And shame has sharp teeth. It whispers, "You're lazy, you're selfish, you're hopeless." That whisper becomes a roar until the person trapped in addiction starts to believe they are the problem. The drug isn't just the poison anymore. Shame becomes its twin partner, keeping the cycle alive. Here's the twist. After repeated use, your brain isn't the same brain that first tried the drug. This is not about weak will or flawed character. It's about a piece of hardware that has been altered. Imagine asking someone with a snapped femur to run a marathon. No matter how much they want to finish, their body won't cooperate. The injury prevents the performance. In the same way, addiction rewires brain circuitry, so the hardware itself won't function the way it once did. This is where biology collides with psychology. Dopamine, the brain's reward signal, is one of the main culprits. In a healthy brain, dopamine spikes when you achieve something useful, eating a meal, laughing with friends, hitting a goal. It's your body's way of saying, "This is good, remember it." But repeated drug use hacks into that system. The brain is forced to adapt, like a city rerouting its power lines. Circuits that once helped you chase purpose now scream, "Get more of the substance." That's survival. The stress system joins the party, amplifying discomfort when the drug is gone. Memory plays its part too, recording every detail of the high so vividly that even a smell or song can spark a craving years later. The trio dopamine, stress, and memory form a kind of hijacked orchestra, playing the same destructive song on repeat. When you see it like this, the shame game starts to look ridiculous. It's not about being too weak to just say no. It's about trying to fight a biological system that has been rewired against you. Addiction is less like a bad decision and more like being trapped in quicksand. The harder you thrash, the deeper you sink. And here's why this matters. When people believe addiction is only about willpower, they don't seek the right kind of help. They keep white-knuckling, trying to shame themselves into sobriety, when what they actually need is a new approach: medical treatment, therapy, community, and compassion. Seeing addiction as a brain-based condition doesn't excuse the damage it causes, but it finally explains why someone can love their family, dream of freedom, and still find themselves crawling back to the same poison. The truth is simple but radical. Addiction is not a choice once the brain has been altered. It is a condition treatable, yes, but never solvable through shame. And once you understand that, the path forward begins to look different. Addiction isn't just a bad habit, it's a loop. Neuroscientists describe it as a cycle with 3 distinct stages: intoxication, negative affect, and participation. At first glance, it looks simple. Get high, crash, crave, repeat. But beneath that simplicity lies a neurological trap that keeps the brain running the same destructive script, even when the conscious mind wants out. Let's start with binge and intoxication. This is the stage that seduces most people into the cycle in the first place. Whether it's a drink, a pill, or a hit, the brain's reward system goes into overdrive. Dopamine floods the basal ganglia, one of the brain's habit hubs, at levels far higher than natural rewards like food or social bonding. To put it in perspective, drugs can spike dopamine up to 10 times the normal level. That surge carves deep grooves into the brain, as if spray painting neon signs along the neural pathways. Shortcut to relief, take it again. In this stage, the brain isn't just enjoying the substance, it's learning, rapidly, to prioritize it above almost everything else. Then comes withdrawal and negative affect. The dopamine party doesn't last forever. Once the substance fades, the brain's reward system goes quiet, sometimes almost silent. Pleasure feels out of reach. At the same time, the extended amygdala, our brain's stress alarm, starts firing non-stop. Anxiety, irritability, restlessness, and physical discomfort flare up. The very circuits that once helped us detect danger are now screaming that life is unbearable without the substance. The contrast is brutal. The high feels higher, and the crash feels lower, until normal life itself feels gray, muted, almost pointless. This isn't weakness, it's the biology of withdrawal tightening the noose. Finally, there's preoccupation and anticipation. This is where cravings live, and cravings aren't just a passing thought, they're full-body events. The prefrontal cortex, the brain CEO in charge of judgment and decision-making, is supposed to step in here, reminding us of long-term goals, values, and consequences. But under the weight of addiction, the prefrontal cortex gets overruled. The voice of reason is drowned out by the roar of craving. What starts as a whisper, "You want it," quickly escalates into a command, "You need it now." In this moment, a want becomes indistinguishable from a survival instinct. Here's the trap. These 3 stages don't happen in isolation. They form a loop, each one feeding the next. The binge sets up the withdrawal. The withdrawal sets up the craving. The craving pulls you back to the binge. And with every trip around the cycle, the brain's wiring strengthens the loop, making escape harder. It's like running laps on a track that gets narrower and steeper with every turn. This is why New Year's resolutions, promises to loved ones, or sheer determination often fail. The loop doesn't ask for permission, it just runs, etched into the neural circuits like a scratched vinyl record that keeps replaying the same song. The person inside might be screaming to change the track, but the needle keeps dropping in the same groove. Understanding this cycle matters because it shifts the conversation. Addiction isn't about enjoying the high too much or being too weak to stop. It's about a brain caught in a self-perpetuating loop where biology has hijacked choice. And when you see it that way, the solution isn't shame, it's strategy. Breaking the loop requires interrupting the cycle at every stage, easing withdrawal safely, reducing cravings, and rewiring the reward system with healthier reinforcements. Addiction is a trap, yes, but once you see the loop clearly, you can begin to find the exits. When most people hear the word dopamine, they picture joy, a rush of pleasure, a chemical high. But here's the plot twist. Dopamine isn't about joy at all. It's about pursuit. It's the brain's way of saying, "This matters. Go after it. Remember it." In other words, dopamine is not the feeling of happiness. It's the drive to chase what the brain has tagged as essential for survival. This system normally keeps us alive and motivated. Think about the satisfaction of eating after hunger, the relief of quenching thirst, or the pride of achieving a goal. Dopamine is what nudges you forward, motivating you to repeat those behaviors. But when drugs or addictive behaviors enter the picture, they hijack this system with unnatural force. Substances like cocaine, meth, or opioids can flood the brain with dopamine levels many times higher than natural rewards. Even behaviors like gambling, gaming, or scrolling social media can exploit the same circuitry, though at a smaller scale. The brain takes note. It doesn't just experience the surge, it encodes it. The dopamine spike effectively places a survival tag on the substance or behavior, as if to say, "This is not optional, this is life or death important." The brain then reorganizes priorities, moving the substance higher and higher up the survival ladder until it eclipses even food, relationships, and safety. Here's where the deception deepens. The more the brain experiences these surges, the more it adapts. Dopamine receptors start to shut down. The system downshifts in an effort to protect itself from being constantly overwhelmed. Imagine a thermostat stuck on high in the middle of summer. The house becomes unbearable, so you pile on fans and blankets in a desperate attempt to fix the imbalance. That's tolerance. The drug doesn't make you feel euphoric anymore. It just makes you feel normal. Without it, life feels flat, gray, and unbearable. And yet, the memory of that first rush remains vivid. The brain keeps replaying it like a highlight reel, reminding you of a time when the substance seemed magical. This mismatch between fading pleasure and lingering memory is part of why addiction is so relentless. You're not chasing joy anymore. You're chasing relief from emptiness, driven by a system that keeps insisting the answer lies in the very thing that caused the emptiness in the first place. This is the cruel irony of addiction. From the outside, it looks like recklessness. Why would someone keep using something that's destroying their life? From the inside, it feels like survival. I need this, or I can't function. The dopamine system has been tricked, convinced that the substance is as essential as air or water. And when the brain believes survival is at stake, willpower is no match. Understanding this deception strips away the moral judgment. It's not that people in addiction are weak, greedy, or broken. They are caught in a biological trap, one that rewires the very system meant to keep them alive. The real failure isn't in the person, it's in the brain's misfiring survival signal. The hopeful truth is this. Just as the brain adapts to addiction, it can also adapt to recovery. Dopamine pathways can relearn. Receptors can slowly rebound. The thermostat can reset. It takes time, patience, and new sources of reward, connection, purpose, healing. But the deception can be undone. Addiction is not proof of weakness. It's proof of how powerful the brain's survival system really is. If dopamine is the fuel of addiction, trauma is often the spark that lights the fire. Research, especially from Dr. Gabor Mate, shows a striking pattern. The deeper the emotional wounds, the louder the drug's promise of relief. Addiction rarely begins with a love of chaos. It begins with pain. Adverse childhood experiences, things like neglect, violence, abuse, or simply growing up in constant unpredictability, leave the nervous system stuck on red alert. Imagine a smoke alarm that never stops ringing. The body learns to expect danger, the mind learns to mistrust safety, and the soul carries a weight it cannot put down. In that state, substances don't just feel good, they feel like rescue. That's why so many people who struggle with addiction describe their substance as a best friend, a shield, or even a parent. It's not about chasing pleasure, it's about finding relief, even if that relief is temporary and destructive. In this sense, self-medicating isn't hedonism, it's survival. It's the desperate attempt to quiet the storm inside. This is why the old question, "What's wrong with you?" misses the point. The real question is, what happened to you? When you shift the lens from judgment to compassion, shame starts to loosen its grip. Addiction stops looking like weakness and starts looking like a wounded nervous system grasping for relief. And here lies the key. Healing trauma isn't optional in recovery. It's essential. Until the raw wounds are acknowledged, the brain will keep reaching for numbing agents. Therapy, safe relationships, and self-compassion aren't luxuries. They're the medicine that allows the nervous system to reset. So when we see addiction through the lens of trauma, the story changes. It's not about bad people making bad choices. It's about hurt people trying to soothe unbearable pain in the only way they've learned. And that shift from blame to understanding is the first real step toward freedom. Addiction doesn't grow in a vacuum, it grows in an environment. The famous rat park experiment proved this vividly. Isolated rats in empty cages drank morphine-laced water until they overdosed. But when the same rats were placed in a stimulating environment filled with tunnels, toys, and companions, they mostly ignored the drug. The difference wasn't the substance, it was the cage. Humans, of course, are more complex, but the principle holds. When people feel trapped, lonely, disconnected, without purpose, addiction tightens its grip. But when life offers connection, safety, and meaning, the pull of substances weakens. In recovery communities where people have stable housing, supportive relationships, and opportunities for meaningful work, relapse rates drop dramatically. This isn't to say environment is everything. Biology and trauma play powerful roles, but the environment is the stage on which recovery plays out. A toxic environment filled with triggers, stress, or neglect keeps the brain rehearsing old scripts. A supportive environment gives the brain a chance to practice new ones. That's why recovery isn't just about removing the drug, it's about reshaping the world around the person. It's about replacing isolation with connection, replacing despair with purpose, and replacing chaos with stability. In short, healing the cage is just as important as healing the brain inside it. Addiction is not a moral defect. It's a loop wired into the brain, fueled by pain and shaped by environment. Once you see it this way, the story shifts. You are not the enemy. The loop is. Breaking free isn't about sheer willpower. It's about strategy, healing trauma, reshaping environment, and retraining the brain through therapy, medicine, and community. It's about patience, trusting that neuroplasticity allows new circuits to grow, one sober choice at a time. So if you're struggling, hear this. You are not beyond repair. Every sunrise without the substance is a small victory, proof that your brain can heal. And if relapse comes, it isn't the end of the story, it's just a stumble on the path forward. Addiction thrives in isolation, but recovery thrives in connection. Share this with someone who needs hope, because you are not alone and the loop can be broken.